the Mother Teresa of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. And in fact, he isn't a Mother Teresa. But let's give a Trento Vision round of applause to our special guest, Mr. Andrew McCarthy. Andy.
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing well down here in South Florida. I'm a Jersey boy. I grew up in Newark, Andy. What's the temperature right now in Newark, New Jersey?
The temperature, Tom, or the wind chill temperature?
Give us the wind chill. We want it horrible.
We want an official weather report.
We're about 15 here with the wind chill.
That's 15. That's 1-5?
Yeah. But by the way, today is 48 days from Super Bowl 48, which we'll be having in just those kind of conditions, no doubt.
Oh, that's right. It's in Jersey this year. That's right.
Yeah.
But you had a very insightful article on National Review about Nelson Mandela, and the title, Andy, is Remembering Mandela Without Rose-Colored Glasses. At the outset, I said this whole Mandela thing was really a third rail. You step on that, you get electrocuted. What made you sit down and say, I gotta deal with this and kind of strip away the layers here?
Well, I think what disturbed me the most, Tom, is that the modern conservative movement did not come up as a sort of a liberty movement in a vacuum. It came up as a liberty movement in the very concrete context of anti-communism. And I think if it continues to stand for anything on the national security side, it has to be that. And Mandela was on the wrong side of that for decades. Now, I don't want to detract from any of his legitimate accomplishments, but in a divide where there are the liberty side of the house and the totalitarian side of the house, he was on the wrong side of that divide.
Yeah, and the hagiography here, the sainthood bestowed upon him, was very distressful to me, and we broached the issue, we dealt with it. But we're kind of uncensored, unfiltered here, and we just can't say these 7 bad words. We basically can say everything else. And
well, I would just say that to people that have a look at modern South Africa, which is the real legacy of Mandela. Let's not just talk pie in the sky. Give him his due, because I think essentially his due seems to be that he could have been worse. And that expectations for him when he came to power were for precisely that, to take South Africa in a rapid revolutionary direction. He didn't do that, but the trend lines in terms of collectivist, totalitarian, one-party government and what that country has become, which is to slide from a first world to a third world basket case, are not, and this is my main point, it's not about race, which is the context that we're implored to see Mandela in again and again. It's about ideology. He was, for his entire influential political life, a Marxist. And when he got out and when he came to power in South Africa, while he didn't move the country immediately into the sort of Fidel Castro direction, he much admired Fidel Castro and much admired other leftist dictator leaders. And I don't think that there's any doubt why it is that with that ideology as its kind of trailblazing force, we have a look at where South Africa is today, which is just a catastrophe.
I want to get into that a little bit, let's take one step back. The article you've written, if anybody wants to see it, it's in National Review online, Remembering Mandela Without Rose-Colored Glasses, and you should see it. You need to read this. It's one of these articles, when a conservative takes a clear, dispassionate, analytical view, factual view of an emotional issue, the immediate leftist response is a knee-jerk, you're an effing racist, How many you're an effing racist letters have you received so far?
I think it's a lot. But, I've long ago probably the same way you have, Tom. I've long ago stopped paying attention to that stuff because, what this kind of reminds me of, remember Alex Karras, the great
Sure.
football player,
A
right?
great actor. I think he was an actor, wasn't he?
He was an
Yes,
actor.
but
Blazing
among
Saddles.
his many credits was that he was an announcer on Monday Night Football.
Yep.
And I remember he was a very funny guy, and one of the things he said one night on one of the broadcasts was, if you're going to go off sides and get the 5 yards anyway, you might as well clock the quarterback while you're. And I kind of feel that way about politics. It seems to me that anything a conservative does to try to inch things, not move things, inch things in a conservative direction, brings down all this sky is falling demagogic rhetoric from the left. So my attitude about it is, why pay any attention to it at all? We should try to say things the way they are and move things to the place where we want them to be. That doesn't absolve us of the obligation to have strong support for our positions. But I don't think you should be afraid to say things because the left is going to say nasty things, because the left is going to say nasty things no matter what you say.
Peace, democracy, and love amongst South Africans are fine words in English. But the Xhosa words of the just sung song just don't tally. How does one who speaks Xhosa and English explain away the contradiction between what the people sing from the very depth of their hearts in Xhosa and what is declared or volunteered in English?
Yeah, it says, go safely, Kahanto. Kahanto, we sizwe. We, the members of Kamato, have pledged ourselves to kill them. Kill the whites. These are the lyrics from the anthem of Kahunto, we size, or the spear of the nation.
And for people who are interested in this, I did put a link in there, CJ, so they can actually go to the tape and see Mandela sing the song. Right. And that's the MK, which much easier for us to pronounce, right, Tom? The MK.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
But the MK is the militant or terrorist division of the African National Congress, which was established by Nelson Mandela and another guy who is depicted in that link singing along Mandela, and that's Ronnie Kasrils, who was a Soviet-trained communist.
The ANC, the African National Council, Congress, I'm sorry. When you read about it, it declares, it states that it is a leftist, a socialist. It avoids the term Marxist, but is it a doctrinaire Marxist organization?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it was also, like most Marxist movements of the era, dominated by Soviet communism, dominated by Soviet agents, a lot of sort of cross-pollination between that particular communist movement and the communist leadership in the Soviet Union.
Then Andy, help us understand. You had the horrible situation of true apartheid, which is a brutal separation and segregation of the races, completely obscene. And then the breakdown of that, and Mandela comes out of prison. He was in prison because he was a terrorist. And the ANC, as I understand it, wasn't removed from the State Department's designated terrorist organization status until, I think, 2008, just a few years ago. Is that correct?
That's right. In order to give Mandela the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2002, the Bush administration had to waive the restrictions against letting terrorists in the country because they were the ANC was still on the terrorist list, as was Mandela.
Oh boy! All right, then here's the part we're struggling with. If Mandela was a terrorist and went to jail for terrorism and then got out, and if the country now being led by his organization essentially is a absolute disaster, I think you referred to it as dystopia, bad juju. Why has the world come around him and really honored him as some sort of a saint-like figure? I'm having a hard time with that.
Well, I think mainly, certainly in the West and certainly in the United States, it's over race, because for whatever else you can say about Mandela, his movement did at least target institutionalized racism, which, as you just pointed out, we're all abhorred by. So, his legacy is going to be seen in that light because of the way that it towers over a lot of our discussion. And I think as a result of that, it also overwhelms the rest of his legacy, which, by the way, people in the West don't have a big problem with, which is this sort of aspirational Marxism as opposed to the concrete Soviet variety. So in the West, there's no real rejection of the Marxist ideology. In many ways, it was never, as Diana Westbrook points out, it was never called to account. There's never been a reckoning of it. There's never been anyone who has done the sort of thing that we've tried to do with radical Islam, which is establish the straight line nexus between the ideology and all the carnage. That's never been done with communism. So wow. in connection with Mandela, I think you have two things. You have, number one, the fact that he was a crusader against something we all agree was evil, which is this institutionalized racism. And secondly, the fact that he was a superstar in the pantheon of the left, which, to those of us who love freedom is a big problem, but to most of the intelligentsia in the West is not a big problem.
Yeah, Andy, we know you got to go, and we were just rolling some B-roll as you were speaking. Mandela's with every deadbeat, low-life dictator who hates America. He's hugging and kissing. But
I think also it's very interesting, and this is, I'm wondering if Andy could tie it together here. It's okay to be racist, to say kill the whites. You get a pass on that if you're black. In the same way that it's okay if you're Arab or Palestinian or Iranian to say kill the Jews. The world gives you a pass. The left gives you a pass. What's the connection there?
Well, I think the connection is this: with respect to revolutionary movements that are either of the left or that work with the left, those expressions are rationalized as political, us versus them, us versus the power structure, and you're not supposed to hear Jew or white. You're supposed to hear it's the haves, and this is the revolution of the have-nots, and that's the way you're supposed to understand it. And if that blinks reality, well, then it blinks reality. But a lot of our current dialogue, and you see it in every single political issue, whether we're talking about Mandela or Obamacare or anything else, logic goes out the window, and a lot of this becomes us against them. Well, I have a book that's been out for about a year called Spring Fever, The Illusion of Islamic Democracy, and if people are interested in following my rantings, I have a website, andrewcmccarthy.com, or you can usually get my stuff on National Review Online.
What's your concluding thought on the 16th of December at 20 minutes after 3 o'clock on the East Coast?
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you all today, and I think that at this point we actually get to settle into what's important, which is our families and our communities. It's that time of year, and I think we should embrace that. But we're going to need to come back strong next year because there are a lot of things on the table. Obamacare is probably the most prominent among them, but an awful lot of things that are going to affect what kind of country we're going to be going forward. So my advice to everyone, I'm going to try to take it myself, is to recharge your batteries these next couple of weeks, because we're going to need everyone.
All right, sounds good. Andy McCarthy, thank you. God bless you, and have a good time with your family. We'll see you now.
Thank you, Andy.
Take care. Bye-bye.